Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back with your daily crypto news and analysis, and today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. So there has been a ton of speculation circling around the SEC lawsuit ever since the inception of it, but everyone is still focused on the SEC, and I still don't understand why, because, in the last couple of years, specifically going all the way back to 2020 into 2024, the SEC, their credibility falls every single year. And I think that we need to really look into that because, as we really look at the SEC, do they really hold any weight to their name around crypto anymore? At this point, I'm more so looking at players like the CFTC, for an example. Now, the CFTC is very interesting because we already know that Ripple has been engaged with the CFTC on multiple occasions, which we will obviously go over in this video. But in today's video, I mainly want to talk about, was it all by plan? So, let's start off with this post here from Brad Garlinghouse. Now, he's actually quoting the CLO of Coinbase, and he's saying the SEC picked fights with the industry and is losing badly in the courts, aka why they are losing credibility. They're now fighting fellow regulators like the CFTC and falling behind international counterparts. At what point will the SEC realize they will lose the war against ETH, just as they lost against XRP? And we even have, the CLO at Coinbase basically throwing the SEC down the stairs and saying, hey, look it, they're wrong. They are wrong in this entire lawsuit, or I should say it's not even a lawsuit just yet, but they're wrong in the idea of calling Ethereum a security. And everyone has always been looking at Ethereum, especially if you are in the XRP community, and you're like, well, I hope that it is a security. But you don't want to be thinking like that. I've said it 100 times. I see a lot of people frustrated about XRP and the SEC lawsuit, and they're saying, well, good for Ethereum. I hope that Ethereum does get targeted. But that's not good, right? It's not beneficial for the space. It's not beneficial for the future of the space. A lot of people are still thinking that Ethereum could be classified as a security. Who knows what's going to happen with this? But regardless, this is not what the video is about, right? The SEC is obviously painted as the bad guy right now around crypto, and everybody looks at the SEC as almost a joke now around the space. But the question is, what's really going to be happening around regulations? And was this XRP lawsuit really a big deal? Well, we've been talking a little bit about it, but when we look at the CFTC, specifically Caroline Pham, she is one that we have been following for a while. She is the commissioner at the CFTC. Now, 801_XRP posted this video. This is the US CFTC commissioner, Caroline Pham. And she's talking a little bit about where the US is compared to the rest of the world. And this is on digital assets. Now, this is actually at the Renew Europe conference. And we have rest of the world on digital assets. She says the US has been very active in participating in the International Forum FSB. The SEC is co-lead on the IOSCO FinTech Task Force, which is looking at digital assets. Do you still believe the US is behind? Still thinking that the SEC versus Ripple case wasn't part of the plan? Think again. Now, we are going to address that in a second, but I want to play this clip real quick. Listen closely to this.
I forgot to provide the sum up. So where is the U.S. compared to the rest of the world? Right. I must not forget the punchline. I think actually, given that the U.S., and you wouldn't necessarily know from the political discourse in Washington, but the U.S. has been very active in participating, obviously, in the international fora, in the FSB. The SEC is actually the co-lead of the IOSCO FinTech Task Force, which is looking at digital assets, among other things, together with the MAS. And then, of course, the Basel Committee. And the Treasury Department has been instrumental in coordinating much of that international engagement. So while the public and the political narrative in the U.S. is negative on digital assets, I think if you actually look at what's happening in the FSB and IOSCO and the Basel Committee, there's a more promising story there. And I do think this might be a circumstance where actually by the need to adhere to the international standards, it may actually pull the U.S. Into more of an alignment with the rest of the world. I think that actually probably helps the U.S. Deal with some of the political challenges that we have around digital assets.
Now, I actually think what she said there, right, in terms of the international standards, how it's going to pull the U.S. into regulatory compliance, I think that that's happening with MiCA as well. MiCA goes live at the end of this year. There's a lot of movement happening around Europe right now with regulations, but also think about the UK as well. The UK has been pushing heavily for regulations. The US, everyone is saying that the US is falling behind, but I actually don't think so. The focus is on these groups, right? IOSCO, FSB, things like that. Remember that the SEC, Gary Gensler specifically, is on the board of the FSB. Now, we'll talk a little bit about that here in a second, but we have over here as well. This is from 2022. CFTC Commissioner visits Ripple offices as decision in SEC case looms. Interesting. And if we scroll down here, we can actually see her taking a picture with Brad Garlinghouse. Here it is. It got a ton of likes. It doesn't have the views because this was before views were introduced onto on X, but I'm sure that it got a ton considering the fact that it got 8.1K likes. But we also have here learning tour involving crypto and blockchain. And then also Brad Garlinghouse later tweeted that the commissioner's visit was related to public-private engagement, likely referring to a privately funded company like Ripple engaging with U.S. regulators. And this was 2022. While in the middle of an SEC lawsuit. Oh, not to forget that just, a couple months later, they were able to comment on global crypto regulatory frameworks with the FSB. That's really weird, right? Also over here, Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. This is January of 2024, just recently. He will be taking the stage alongside CFTC Commissioner Caroline Pham at Bloomberg House on Tuesday at 4:20 p.m. This is for Crypto at a Crossroads, Future-Proofing Digital Assets. And all it was talking about was regulations, compliance, standardization, things like that. And I bring you guys to my post regarding this, right? Because this goes all the way back to the summertime. This was July of 2023. I said, in my opinion, the Ripple versus SEC lawsuit has been planned since day one. October 2020, Brad Garlinghouse, we're asking for a level playing field, calling for a single national regulatory framework. February of 2023, FSB, IMF, and the BIS working on a global regulatory framework for crypto with the G20, soon to be released July, September of this year. December 2022, Ripple has the opportunity to comment on the international regulation of crypto asset activities with who? Oh yeah, that's right, the FSB. Meanwhile, they are still in a lawsuit and XRP is a security, right? Laugh out loud. Sure. Then we also have down here in the Ripple response, we see that quote yet again, level playing field. A global regulatory framework will create a harmonized approach to crypto and ensure we don't cause more fragmentation in terms of regulations. The lawsuit against Ripple and XRP was intended to streamline crypto regulations. It also slowed the technology down for the infrastructure and standards to be put in place. Think about it like this, right? Ever since the lawsuit was completed, and I know that the entire lawsuit's not out of the way, but the main thing is, which is XRP. Ever since XRP got cleared as a security, because it's now a currency, it's deemed a currency in court. Ever since that big moment, XRP not a security, guess what we have seen? Every single major institution flipping bullish, launching a Bitcoin ETF, looking at crypto-driven solutions and services. They want to provide these services. They are here now. They are talking openly. And also Ripple expanding rapidly. We also have all of this stuff happening on the XRP ledger. I mean, think about how crazy this is. And also Ripple hiring for institutional DeFi solutions on the XRP ledger. You cannot make this up. But this goes all the way back to 2020. where they were talking about that level playing field. This is Brad Garlinghouse calling for a single national regulatory framework. Then he's working with the FSB, with the IMF and the BIS, and this is around the G20. It's all around a global crypto framework. This is pretty much a one-size-fits-all. This is that harmonized approach, that single national regulatory framework. We also have over here, December 15th, 2022, Ripple. This is with the FSB. Their comments on a regulatory framework. Level playing field globally. Outside of this, right, I commented on this again, July 17th. Remember this tweet regarding Ripple and the SEC case? I broke down why I believe XRP was planned since day one. Now, days later, we get the finalized FSB recommendations on a global regulatory framework. Look through the images and read my tweet below. I find it very interesting that Ripple was able to comment and make recommendations regarding this framework while in the middle of a lawsuit. The best part about this document is that it confirms that the FSB wants to implement its recommendations worldwide by the end of 2025. Johnny Deaton did mention that crypto regulations will take some time and even years, and predicted 2025 would be his best guess. This is definitely interesting to note. And here we also have the FSB will review the state of implementing its recommendations worldwide by the end of 2025. And this is together with the IMF, and they were delivering a joint report on the existing policies and regulatory issues to the G20. Mind you, Ripple has been working with the IMF for a while now. And they have been working with the BIS as of recently. Now, if we go back over here, have they been working with the FSB? No, but they were able to comment on the FSB's global regulatory framework while in the middle of a lawsuit, while Gary Gensler's on the board at the FSB. How insane is that? And then, of course, we have Chris Giancarlo. He is the former chairman of the CFTC. The fight for the future of money. Former CFTC chairman Chris Giancarlo, the Internet of Value is coming. And this is actually just recently from Tony Edward, Thinking Crypto One's podcast. Check this clip out that got posted by RizXRP.
The Internet of Value is coming. Money is going to exist on digital networks in the future. And the issue is going to be less the matter of the value and more the matter of values. And if we can get the values right, if people around the globe knew that anything that uses the dollar as a reference point will respect their legitimate rights to privacy, then the United States is going to win this game. We're going to come from kind of being absent at the table to leading the table. Why? Because people that aspire to freedom worldwide will aspire to own dollar-referenced instruments. And that's what I think, that's where I call my book, The Fight for the Future of Money. That's the fight right now. The fight is about the values of dollar-based digital systems of value. That's what we need to be fighting for as free citizens.
Yeah.
The internet.
Now, remember, right? Chris was one that was celebrating the XRP case. He even said that 3 years ago, that him and his colleague were actually talking about how XRP was not an investment contract subject to regulation as a security. And now it got validated by the court ruling back in July. And remember, Chris is also on the board of the Digital Dollar Project. You seriously can't make up these connections. Like, at the end of the day, the SEC lawsuit, in my opinion, it's weightless. There's no weight to it. I also don't think that it's something that we even need to worry about. I think that the SEC is definitely shaking things up around the space. You could call it a, shakeout. You could call it whatever you want. But regardless, I do think that a lot of the motive here is really kind of to streamline regulations. Look at FTX. Everyone is like, well, why did FTX get through the door? Why did FTX get the free pass? Well, guess what happened right after FTX imploded? All of a sudden, blanket regulations, they're planning it, they're going after Coinbase, they're going after Binance. It's all to accelerate regulations around this space. I keep saying it, and I've been saying it since day one. Focus on the much bigger picture. Is the SEC anything to worry about? No, I don't think so. Because regulations is not coming from the SEC. Regulations are coming from, these big players. Like, for an example, the FSB with the IMF and the BIS and the G20. That's where we should be focused on. Until we get an actual proper regulatory framework globally, the SEC is nonsense. It's all noise. That's why when we hear all these talks about how the SEC is going to crash crypto, the SEC is going to kill crypto, a lot of it is a little bit blown out of proportion. Now, do I think that the SEC is trying to harm this space as much as they possibly can before we actually have proper regulations? 100%. And I think that that's all by plan as well. Causes as much pain as possible. Look at the XRP lawsuit, right? Initially, it killed sentiment around XRP. It still has XRP sentiment killed today. It shook a lot of people out of XRP. Not only that, it caused $15 billion worth of damages. Now, was there corruption tied to that? 100%. But I also think that as we really look at that XRP lawsuit, it was a major shakeout, and a lot of people just completely forgot about XRP since that day. And that's exactly what they want. We know how big of a piece of the pie XRP really is. We know how big of a player Ripple is around this new form of money being created as well. I'm not losing focus, and I don't think anyone else should lose focus either. I don't think that the SEC is something that we really need to worry about. Again, even if none of this was by plan, which again, the connections really kind of speak for itself, I still think that the SEC is an absolute joke. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on if there's more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.